I love having his support, you know what I'm saying? His support is like very, very different from what I've had in the past, and how he speaks to me and stuff is very different. There you go. We deserve each other.
What happens when one name starts trending and someone else can't stay quiet anymore? Because the moment Claressa Shields started trending across social media, the conversation didn't stay focused on her for long. It shifted, fast. Screenshots resurfaced, old clips were reposted, timelines were stitched together in real time, and just when the internet frenzy hit its peak, Remy finally responded. That response is what sent the drama into overdrive. Claressa trending wasn't about one post or one rumor, it was about accumulation. Weeks of speculation, commentary, and analysis finally colliding in one viral moment. And when that happens, silence becomes impossible, especially for people whose names are already being dragged into the narrative whether they speak or not. Remy's response wasn't long, it wasn't detailed, and that's exactly why it mattered. Because it didn't deny anything outright, it didn't clarify timelines, it didn't offer context, it simply acknowledged the noise, and in internet culture, acknowledgement is fuel. Fans immediately split into camps. Some saw Remy's response as defensive, others saw it as calculated, and others believed it was forced, a reaction to momentum that had grown too big to ignore. Because once someone trends, the story stops being personal. It becomes communal. Everyone feels entitled to an opinion, and every word spoken gets dissected frame by frame. What made this eruption different is that Claressa never asked to be trending for this reason. Yet once her name hit the algorithm, the story expanded to include everyone connected to her narrative, past, present, and unresolved. And Remy's response, intentional or not, validated that expansion. Tonight we're breaking down why Claressa trending triggered this chain reaction, what Remy actually responded to, and what she avoided, and why this online drama feels less like gossip and more like a power struggle over narrative control. Because when trends collide with silence, someone always feels forced to speak. According to how the situation unfolded, Claressa Shields trending wasn't just another viral moment, it shifted control of the narrative. Before the trend, conversations lived in pockets, reaction channels, comment sections, side debates. Once her name hit the wider algorithm, everything merged. And when everything merges, silence stops being neutral. What made this trend different was volume plus timing. Old clips resurfaced at the same time as new commentary, opinions stacked on top of speculation. And because Claressa herself didn't initiate the moment, the internet filled the gap with its own conclusions. According to observers, that's when pressure quietly transferred to everyone connected to her story, especially people whose silence could be read as implication. This is where Remy enters the frame. As Claressa trended, Remy's name began trending with her, even without new information. And in internet culture, co-trending creates association whether it's fair or not. According to fan analysis, that association forced Remy into a corner: stay silent and let assumptions grow, or speak and risk amplifying the moment. Why does trending matter this much? Because trends flatten nuance. They reward speed over accuracy. They turn complex timelines into simple storylines. And once a trend forms, people don't wait for confirmation, they react to momentum. According to the narrative, that momentum made Remy's response less about Claressa and more about protecting her own positioning in a story she didn't start but couldn't escape. Another key detail is that Claressa trending reframed the situation emotionally. Instead of focusing on past relationships or disputes, the conversation centered on sympathy and scrutiny at the same time. Sympathy for Claressa's silence, scrutiny for everyone else's. And when that balance shifts, the people who speak next are judged not by what they say, but by why they're saying it now. By the end of this part, one thing is clear. Claressa trending didn't create new drama, it rearranged who had to respond and who could stay quiet. According to how the internet dissected it, Remy's response didn't calm the situation, it reframed it. Not because of what she said, but because of what she avoided. In moments like this, absence speaks louder than presence, and fans immediately noticed what was missing. Remy didn't address Claressa Shields directly. She didn't mention timelines. She didn't clarify emotional overlap. She didn't explain motives or circumstances. Instead, her response focused on the noise, the internet chatter, the speculation, the way narratives spiral once a name trends. According to fans, that choice shifted the focus away from facts and toward control. What her response did accomplish was drawing a boundary. It signaled that she was aware, watching, and unwilling to be pulled into a back and forth. That can be read as maturity, it can also be read as strategy, and depending on where you stand, it confirmed different suspicions. Supporters saw restraint, critics saw deflection. Neutral observers saw a calculated pause designed to avoid saying anything that could be replayed out of context. Another reason the response mattered is timing. Remy didn't speak when rumors were bubbling quietly. She spoke when Claressa's name hit peak visibility. According to fan analysis, that suggests the response wasn't driven by emotion, it was driven by momentum. When a trend reaches a certain size, silence stops protecting you. Speaking becomes a way to slow the narrative, even if it doesn't stop it. The internet reaction proves that point. After Remy responded, the conversation didn't shrink, it split. Some people pivoted to analyzing her tone. Others doubled down on Claressa's silence. And some began questioning why clarity still hadn't arrived from anyone involved. In other words, the response didn't resolve confusion, it redistributed it. By the end of this part, the takeaway isn't that Remy made things worse or better. It's that her response confirmed this moment is no longer about private history. It's about who controls the story when the algorithm decides it's time. According to how the situation evolved after Remy Ma responded, the drama didn't escalate because of new facts, it escalated because of interpretation. Once Claressa was trending and Remy acknowledged the noise, the internet did what it always does best. It filled in the blanks aggressively. At that point, Claressa Shields' silence became the loudest voice in the room. Fans weren't just asking what happened anymore, they were asking why she wasn't speaking. And when someone stays quiet while everyone else reacts, the audience often assigns meaning that may or may not be fair. According to online commentary, Claressa's composure was read in two opposite ways. Dignity by some, devastation by others. This split is what fueled the drag fest. People began projecting their own conclusions onto her silence. Some framed her as the bigger person choosing peace. Others framed her as someone who had already said enough through past actions and didn't owe the internet another performance. But critics took a harsher angle, suggesting silence meant she'd been blindsided and was still processing in real time. None of these interpretations required confirmation, they fed off momentum, not evidence. Meanwhile, Remy's response became a secondary target. Fans replayed it line by line, tone by tone. According to the reaction, the lack of direct denial or clarification allowed speculation to stretch in every direction. And once speculation turns viral, it doesn't slow down, it looks for someone to blame. In this case, blame rotated between sympathy for Claressa and scrutiny toward Remy. What made this especially volatile is that no one involved escalated publicly. No clapbacks, no receipts, no live rants. And in internet culture, restraint is often mistaken for guilt or fear. According to the narrative, the absence of chaos created space for the audience to become the chaos. By the end of this phase, the story had transformed. It wasn't about relationships anymore. It was about power over perception, who gets to stay silent, who is expected to explain, and why the internet feels entitled to closure even when the people involved don't offer it. According to how this moment has settled online, the biggest conflict isn't between individuals, it's between silence and speculation. Once Claressa Shields trended and Remy Ma responded, the story stopped being about facts and became about who gets to define the meaning of what isn't said. Fans noticed something important: neither woman tried to win the internet. No receipts, no exposés, no emotional breakdowns. According to observers, that restraint created a vacuum, and the internet hates vacuums. When clarity isn't offered, people manufacture it. They stitch clips together, they rewrite timelines, they assign motives. And once that machine starts, the original truth becomes almost irrelevant. What made this particularly intense is how uneven the expectations were. Claressa was expected to explain her silence. Remy was expected to clarify her response, but the expectations themselves revealed a bias. One woman was being asked to justify her pain, the other to justify her position. According to online discourse, that imbalance fueled anger more than the rumors ever did. This is where narrative control becomes the real battleground. Whoever speaks next risks locking the story into a version they may not be ready to live with. Whoever stays silent risks letting strangers decide the ending for them. And according to how this unfolded, both Claressa and Remy chose restraint, not because they had nothing to say, but because saying the wrong thing would last forever online. By this stage, the drama had outgrown the people involved. It became a referendum on how much access the public believes it deserves to private fallout. And once a story reaches that point, no response will satisfy everyone. Any clarity offered would simply become the next thing dissected, doubted, and dragged. That's why this moment feels unresolved and probably will stay that way. Because the internet doesn't move on when it gets answers. It moves on when it finds a new question. At this point, what this situation really exposed isn't a secret relationship or a hidden argument. It exposed how powerfully silence shapes narratives. Once Claressa Shields started trending and Remy Ma responded, the story stopped belonging to the people involved and started belonging to the internet. And that's when everything got distorted. No one lied loudly. No one confessed dramatically. No one provided receipts. And yet the drama exploded anyway. That's because in today's culture, absence of explanation is treated like evidence. When people don't get answers, they create them. When silence lasts too long, it gets interpreted as guilt, fear, or strategy, depending on who's being watched. And this moment made one thing painfully clear: the public demands emotional access even when it isn't owed. What makes this situation especially uncomfortable is that both women chose restraint. Claressa didn't perform heartbreak. Remy didn't perform defense. And instead of respecting that boundary, the internet filled the gap with speculation, projection, and judgment. According to how this played out, the meltdown wasn't caused by what was said. It was caused by what wasn't handed over for consumption. So now the real question isn't about relationships at all. It's about who gets to stay quiet and who is pressured to explain themselves for the comfort of strangers. It's about why silence from one person is framed as dignity, while silence from another is framed as suspicion. And it's about how quickly online attention turns private processing into public entertainment. Now it's on you. Do you think silence is a form of control or a form of protection? Should Claressa owe the internet clarity just because she trended? Was Remy right to acknowledge the noise without feeding it? And when stories go viral without facts, who's really responsible for the damage that follows? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Keep it respectful, not reactive. If this breakdown helped you see how online narratives are built, not from truth but from timing and silence, like the video so others can find it. Share it if you believe restraint deserves as much respect as reaction. And subscribe for more long-form breakdowns that focus on behavior, power, and what really happens when the internet decides it wants answers. Because sometimes the loudest drama isn't created by people, it's created by everyone watching.